as the only ones to complete the feat. Now we welcome in Todd Frazier. So how exactly were the Astros able to completely turn around for Houston one night after the Phillies hit 5 home runs?
Well, first off, it's experience. I mean, they have the experience of what they've done in the past. They've been there a bunch of times. And you have Dusty Baker for 2. He's one of the greatest managers to ever be a part of baseball history. He's played the game. And you got a guy like Javier coming in, and Christian Javier coming in with an electric fastball, a rising fastball that his vertical was 12 inches. Now, trying to explain that to somebody, when a pitch is coming at you, usually we're trying to swing down on the ball and crush it that way. So when the ball's coming up, how are you going to make the adjustment? The Phillies could not find a way to make the adjustment, and that made those off-speed pitches even more lethal. And you saw yesterday, combined no-hitter, and Dusty pushed all the right buttons yesterday.
Oppose all forms of hatred and oppression and stand strong with communities that are marginalized and impacted every day. I am aware of the negative impact of my post towards the Jewish community, and I take responsibility. I do not believe everything said in the documentary was true or reflects my morals and principles. I am a human being learning from all walks of life, and I intend to do so with an open mind and a willingness to listen. So, for my family and I, we meant no harm to any one group, race, or religion of people and wish only to be a beacon of truth and light. Okay, to talk about this, we have JWill and Perk joining us. First, Perk, I'm going to start with you. Your reaction to the donation and the statement.
Well, I mean, at that point in time, I feel like Josiah and Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets organization, they had to do something. And this is just a starting point. I mean, when you think about, you know, the overall fan base around the whole entire NBA, and I looked at the last 2 games, you know, and you had some of the people from the Jewish community sitting courtside, you know, that first game when they were wearing their T-shirts, and then all of a sudden they wasn't there the next game. And so, you know, you could start seeing things to that nature, but it's a starting point. You got to crawl before you walk. But I think this is just the beginning. And I applaud Kyrie for actually coming out and putting out that statement and making a donation. But I will say this. Money doesn't solve everything. So at the end of the day, he's still going to have to grow. He's still going to have to let people know around the world that it's genuine and it wasn't forced. And he's going to have to continue to embrace all races, all cultures, all communities, things to that nature. But again, it's a starting point.
JWill, your reaction?
So here's how I feel about it, Perk. The comments that he stated were right on point. He did a hell of a job constructing that with him and his team. I wish they could have done that sooner, because then we would have less chaos. The only problem that I personally have with it is, and this is according to sources, is that he did not personally show up to the ADL meeting. He sent a proxy. On the back end, the statement was correct. The donation, I understood. That matched with the NBA. But there is starting to become like a theme with me about accountability and addressing things head on, which makes me worry about this team even more because, Perk, you and I, we're good friends. We've had very, very serious-ass conversations in life about things work-wise, family, and we've had to address, you've been on teams where you've had to address things head on, directly. So when I hear that from those sources that he wasn't personally there to meet, to even talk it through, I'm like, he just swaying away from accountability once again. And that's what makes me continue to worry about this team and about ultimately Kyrie Irving's image about not handling things and addressing it directly. Addressing it direct. That's my only issue with it, Perk.
And see, to add on to that, that's a bigger problem because now I didn't know that. You just shared that information with me, and I, you know, like you said, it's sources. But if Kyrie Irving wasn't there, now all of a sudden it raised question marks. Is it organic? Is it authentic? You know what I mean? Or was his hand forced to do these type of things so that you could try to move, so that they could try to move on from this? You know, and that's the problem right there. But again, we have been talking about this. The Brooklyn Nets have been the soap opera of the NBA. Real I call them real men of New Jersey, of Brooklyn. That's what the hell they are, man. And I'm being serious right now. It's been nonstop drama since the day Kyrie Irving has stepped foot into that organization. Nonstop drama. Whether he's been right at times, whether he's been wrong at times. I mean, it's been drama all over the place. Again, this is what I'm talking about. When you talk about holding people accountable, I'm thinking right now that it was organic. I'm thinking that he showed up. I'm thinking all parties were involved. He actually was in place. It came from an authentic and organic place. But JWill, you sharing this information, it sounded like it wasn't real.
Perk, so let me tell you what an ADL spokesperson said, according to the Post, and they were quoted, "We have not yet spoken directly to Kyrie, but we hope to have the opportunity to do so soon." So he has spoken to his team. So everything you see around this conversation alludes to, yes, the ADL has spoken to Kyrie Irving's team, but not Kyrie directly. So once again, like addressing issues head on, and like that's the problem for me, like not having accountability. And that's going to be an ongoing issue because this is going to continue to linger. Just because you make a statement and you give money donation-wise doesn't mean that this conversation is going to stop. When there's a trail, there's a history of behavior here that seems to keep kind of, gearing his head.
Kyrie is not a young, he's not a young fella, Christine. So my message to Kyrie Irving would be absolute silence. And I was a player that had a voice in the locker room, but some people you're just never going to change. And no matter how much you try to figure them out, it's like he's an old veteran now in the NBAs. And we have this saying that go around, old people are stuck in their ways, and rightfully so. This is who Kyrie Irving is, okay? So if in my locker room, my job is not to focus on Kyrie Irving and personally try to get him to buy in or whatever the case may be. My job is to make sure I rally up everybody else, all the young fellas that are in there, Cam Thomas, who haven't played that much this season, who I need to make sure his mindset is right so when he do start to get playing time, because it's coming, that he's in the right mental state. Claxton, I got to worry about guys like Ben Simmons. How am I going to get him back on track to produce on the basketball court and overcome everything that happened with him over the last 2 years? So I can't put all my focus into Kyrie Irving because I got a team to worry about. Not this one individual, I got a team.
Big Perk, when's the last time we've seen a team in any sport win a championship when the GM is doing a press conference and says, we are not allowing Kyrie to talk to the media. We are not allowing our franchise player to talk to the media for a couple of days so cool heads can prevail. Now, this is the general manager of a squad saying we're going to minimize. So, we have the old saying sometimes, Perk, like what coaches need to do. Sometimes as a coach, you need to protect the player from himself. Now we're seeing the Nets start to set out a series of strategies to try to protect Kyrie Irving from himself. But how many times do we see that, brother, translated into a world championship for an NBA team or a Super Bowl for an NFL team or a World Series for a baseball team in MLB? You don't see that. It doesn't happen that way. So, these are all things that kind of lead me up to this. And as a teammate, frankly, it's almost like, what can you even say? There's nothing you could really say. And it makes me feel bad for a guy like Kevin Durant, who you and I both know at the end of the day, all KD wants to do is hoop and win at a very high level. But it's almost like everybody on this team is guilty by association. Like I said it yesterday, I think they truly are. I'm a Nets fan, the most unlikable team maybe in the history of sports. Because there's always something happening off the court that is taking away from how damn talented they are on the court. All we should be talking about is, are Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant the best duo the game of basketball has ever seen? All we should be talking about is, how does a coach implement Ben Simmons into the system the right way? When does Joe Harris, how can he elevate his level of play? When is Seth Curry going to come back? And here we are talking about everything else other than basketball, 7 games into the regular season. Again,
I understand what he did with Boston, and I agree, right? He did wrong. The Boston Celtics, he broke the guidelines in the team organization. and they suspended him. And I agree with the suspension, and I have said numerous of times that he was wrong about it, and I'm not defending it. But let's talk about him as the coach. Let's talk about what he did last year with this young Celtic team. Let's talk about how he turned this team around, made Jason Tatum and got Jaylen Brown on the same page where they had one of the greatest regular season turnarounds in NBA history to the last part of the season. The record that they had last season going over to the finals, something that Brad Stevens couldn't even do with this group of young fellas. So when I look at his leadership skills on the floor and what he's bringing to the table, holding guys accountable. Now, is he going to come to the Brooklyn Nets and all of a sudden they're going to become the title favorites and he's going to get the best out of Ben Simmons and he's going to hold Kyrie Irving accountable? I can't say that. But what I can say is that he's a serious upgrade from Steve Nash as a coach, and he's proven that. He has a personal relationship already with Kevin Durant. They're good friends. And he was a former player that's well respected as an assistant coach, as a guy that's respected in the brotherhood of the NBA. So him coming to there, not saying that short term is going to just completely change everything, but long term, I feel like building for the future. And the future could be next year or the year after next, but if you have Kevin Durant, who you have under contract, and then you have Ime Udoka, I tell you one thing, that's a nice starting point to build to try to accomplish what they ultimately trying to get to, and that's winning the championship.
The question I have, Perk, is should he be in position to do so in the first place? And that's what I'm really torn about, man. Because I believe everybody deserves second chances, Perk. And I know Ime Udoka, from a basketball perspective, is genius. But there's a lot of stuff to unpack here optically about what he's coming into. So, hey, let me solve one calamity with another. In the state of chaos, now I'm going to bring another piece of chaos to the table. And optically for me, and I can't say the word on TV, this is the greatest blank show in the NBA.
Who has been more impressive this season, Tyreek or Mahomes?
Oh, it's Patrick. Patrick's still playing at an MVP level. The easy answer is look at the correlation or the drop-off that Aaron Rodgers is having right now without Devontae Adams. And Patrick's not experiencing that. Okay, so there's one offense in the NFL that's averaging over 30 points per game. That's Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes is the #1 quarterback QBR-wise from the pocket. He leads the NFL in first down passes. He leads the NFL in touchdown throws. That's doing that with all without a guy that over the last 2 years had given him 25% of his production in Tyreek Hill. I mean, Tyreek Hill over the last 2 years has had almost 200 catches, almost 2,500 yards, and 24 touchdowns. What Patrick Mahomes is doing right now is once again reestablishing the reality of I'm the best player in the NFL, and I'm the best quarterback in the NFL. And I get that that's saying a lot with guys like Josh Allen who are playing as well as they are. Tyreek Hill is having an incredible season as well. But what Patrick has done without that bona fide #1 receiver, when we're watching a Hall of Famer and Aaron Rodgers have his struggles without his guy, shows that Patrick right now is on track for his second best season ever without one of the best receivers in all of football. Patrick's not even close.
Dan, you're right. It's not close because it's Tyreek Hill. And you spoke that like a true quarterback, all about me, me, me. Look at what I'm doing. Well, Patrick Mahomes has a similar environment. He still has Andy Reid. He's comfortable. He has Travis Kelce, who's his #1 weapon. Tyreek Hill went to a new environment, a losing culture, and he's exceeded expectations. This guy is on pace for 2,000 yards receiving, and his franchise quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa hasn't even been available because of the concussions. The fact that he's elevated, it is rare that you have a free agent come to a new destination and exceed expectations. And yes, I understand that they're behind right now within the division, but we expect with Chubb that they're going to be a Super Bowl contender. When you have Patrick Mahomes in the environment that he's already in, they're always a Super Bowl contender. So you talk about Tyreek Hill has elevated. He has elevated.
Billy Bob, how can you say that?
I know what I said earlier in the year.
Yeah. Hold on.
I know what I said earlier in the year.
So how does that how can both those things happen? How can you like the fact that you had your thought, that's fine. We all have our thoughts. And Patrick's got them as the #1 seed in their division or the #1 team in their division and right there with Buffalo. The fact that he's got them there with a defense that has not been great and a lot of their young players not contributing kind of points to the fact that his season is remarkable right now.
But they lost one person. They only lost one person. Tyreek Hill traded in all his cards. We're playing poker. He put in 10 cards and took 10 new cards, and he's still having a productivity. And he has a team that has been in the basement, has not been a Super Bowl contender. He elevated them. So what I'm saying is when you think about the rise and the ascension of the Dolphins, it's greater than the ascension and the rise of the Kansas City Chiefs. We knew the Chiefs would be somewhere around there, right? Tyreek Hill went to a losing culture, and he's codependent. He plays a codependent position. He needs a quarterback to get him the ball. He's the focus of the offense, and he's exceeded expectations. Listen, both things can kind of be true, but I think if I had to pick one, I would pick Tyreek Hill because he's went there and he's exceeded expectations. He's been a leader. He's been arguably the best and most unstoppable weapon, in football. And we thought that he was the most unstoppable weapon in football because he had Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback and because he had the protection of Travis Kelce. Now he's the guy, and people still can't find a way to slow him down. He's on pace for 2,000 yards receiving. Yeah. That's special. Offensive Player of the Year. Patrick Mahomes is still in a fight with, you think about Josh Allen. So that's what I'm saying. It's not even close as far as who's the number one, the Offensive Player of the Year, in my opinion.
The only pushback I would have is the correlation or the lateral comparison between Patrick without Tyreek and then Aaron without Devontae. And we've watched other receivers go from one team to another and still play dominant football. We're seeing it with A.J. Brown in Philadelphia, who's second in the NFL in yards when it comes to man coverage. We saw it with Stephon Diggs when he went to Buffalo. We see it with DeAndre Hopkins when he went to Arizona. We've watched receivers go from being really good in one spot and very quickly being really good in another spot and continuing to dominate no matter the quarterback or the environment. We watched Patrick Mahomes, and the guy, and I understand, Bart, when you say, well, he lost one guy, but that one guy is the one that you're saying is a difference maker in Miami.
Reed's got to get it in three-point country. It's to Ryan on its way. He's got it! Matt Ryan sends it to overtime.
I told you that's why he should be in the game. You need someone that can just catch and let fly.
And just like that, the Lakers are on a 2-game win streak. LeBron didn't feel great going into last night's game against the Pelicans as he was bedridden with a virus. He probably would have felt worse with a loss against the Pels, but Matt Ryan hit that game-tying 3 at the end of regulation. LeBron, take us through that final play.
It was a great play call by Coach. And to have a sniper like Matt to knock it down, stay ready. Big time shot for him.
My confidence is, when it comes to shooting, is unwavering. I mean, I wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case.
All right, in his first 4 games played this season, Russell Westbrook struggled to find his groove. In his last 2 games, Russ coming off the bench has improved his efficiency from the field, recording 18-8-8 on Sunday versus the Nuggets, and then 13-9-7 last night against the Pels. The Lakers won both of those games, earning their first 2 wins of the season. All right, JWill and Perk are here back with us, and I'm going to start with you, Perk, on this one. Can Russ and the Lakers actually make this thing work out in LA?
Yeah, short term for the remainder of the season until at least they find a trade place for him. But, let me applaud Russell Westbrook. I don't know what clicked into him. I don't know who talked to him, and I believe it had to be someone in his immediate circle, one of his family members that pulled his coattail to say, hey, man, you have to adjust your game. You have to put your pride aside. And what I'm seeing out of Russell Westbrook play is now he's starting to play with joy. Now he's starting to play with that passion again. And now it seems like he's starting to accept a lesser role. And listen, here's the thing, too. When I look at the game and I watch his play on the floor, that's one thing, making plays, those no-look passes, getting to the basket, finishing, yelling at the stands, getting the fans hyped. But what I noticed last night was this. When he wasn't in the game when it mattered the most in the clutch time and late in the fourth quarter and even in overtime, I looked at Russell Westbrook and I looked at his body language at the bench. He was up. He was cheering. He was engaged into the game. He was encouraging. He was talking through coverages, yelling out things to that nature. And I said to myself, This is what the league wants to see. This is what Russ has to show the world, that he's able to lose himself in the team. So when I have seen this through this small sample size, they still have a long way to go. But as of right now, with the way that Darvin Ham has affected that locker room, look, they don't have I understand they're 2-5. I get that. But I'm talking about just him and Russell Westbrook. I see the passion and the relationship between those two. It's everything. And if Russ could keep that up, which I think he will, then yes, short term for the remaining of this season, yes, they will be able to work this out.
So since then, what I've seen is, and once again, I'm just painting the picture, Perk. Andrew Wiggins got an extension, pretty big one. Jordan Poole, who got sucker punched by Draymond, got a pretty massive extension. Draymond Green has not received a suspension. And the energy around Draymond Green and the perception of him has been forever tainted by this video. So you tell me, Perk, because we've been inside a lot of locker rooms. Damn, we've had conversations with former athletes and current athletes about trust, what happens within the lines. I heard you talk about a situation I was in a couple years ago with KD where you're like, well, JWill, I hear you, but you violated that trust. So you tell me, what makes franchises great to play for? The trust within those lines, man. Nothing that happens in practice gets out. Nothing that goes down that is said doesn't stay out. It stays internally. So when I see Draymond's character or, who he's envisioned to be by the public, when I see it pushed the opposite way, I'm like, his value has gone down. How does that ultimately not affect the culture or the chemistry on the team? Mm-hmm. How could it not when you haven't heard any follow-up from the Golden State Warriors about, Perk, what, 1 or 2 people or 3 people? Hey, look, you 3, there's going to be a lawsuit here if I don't get answers. And then when I get an answer and I find out who leaked it, I'm going to make a statement by saying to ensure any player that wants to be a part of our organization in the future or any player that's currently on our roster, this will never happen again. We have found the person, the perpetrator here. We have called him out. He was no longer working for the organization, he or she, and we want to create a culture of trust. We want our players to trust us. You tell me how you can trust an organization when that stuff leaks out internally, and now Draymond Green's in the situation he is.
No, I agree. But look, this is why this season, this team this team that the Golden State Warriors have, this is going to be the biggest challenge of Steve Kerr's coaching career. And I say that because, one, you alluded to talking about Draymond Green and him punching and supposedly knocking out Jordan Poole. So, okay, now you have to regain that trust, and now you have to get back that chemistry.
All right, breaking news here on First Take. Adam Silver has made a statement on the Kyrie Irving situation, saying Kyrie Irving made a reckless decision to post a link to a film containing deeply offensive anti-Semitic material. While we appreciate the fact that he agreed to work with the Nets and the Anti-Defamation League to combat anti-Semitism and other forms of discrimination, I am disappointed that he has not offered an unqualified apology and more specifically denounced the vile and harmful content contained in the film he chose to publicize. I will be meeting with Kyrie in person in the next week to discuss this situation. JWill and Perk back with us to talk about this statement. JWill, your thoughts?
A lot of thoughts. Perk, number one, why so late to the party? Why so late to the party? This should have happened a while ago from Adam Silver, who is Jewish, who represents the NBA. And I wanted to hear from Adam as soon as this whole thing went down and happened. And secondly about this whole situation, and I have a lot of respect for Adam with the way he's handled a lot of situations. And it started from how he handled Donald Sterling in the NBA with the Clippers and his alignment he had with the players in order to get the right representation from an ownership perspective in that seat. So a lot of respect. But this to me is as if, Perk, I am a parent of 3 right now. This is as if my daughter did something really, really bad in school, okay? Put a black eye on our family name in school and came home and me saying, you know what? I am so disappointed in you. And you and I are going to have a very serious talk about this after you go out and play with your friends. Go play. Go have fun. What does that do? Like, I'm going to have a talk with you while you're just able to go out and play with your friends. Like, it doesn't put a hard foot down or a hard stance other than him sharing his disappointment in this whole thing. And I hope he would be disappointed. I mean, the amount of people I've spoken to over the last several days to get a full-on, comprehensive opinion about all of this has been astronomical. And every single one of them, even though they try to understand where Kyrie is coming from and what it means to him to find his Black heritage and the roots of that, right? Which we all, Perk, we talked to Amara Stoudemire about this the other day. We all want to find that. We all want more answers to that, okay? Because it was stripped away from us.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.